Hi, I'm Radia Galeese. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist here in Austin, Texas. I want to talk to you today about politics and nutrition because you may or may not be aware of it, but there's a lot of things going on in your state legislature that you need to be aware of. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'll just tell you the Texas story, but it does pertain to you in whatever state you're in. Back in 1999, there was a bill that was passed in the House and in the Senate in the state of Texas that stated that nobody but a registered dietitian could speak of diet or nutrition in their practice. So if you were an ND, if you were a CCN like myself, if you were a CN, or any other kind of practitioner other than a medical doctor, you could not speak of nutrition in your practice. So this was actually passed in the state of Texas, in the House and in the Senate, and we fortunately got Governor Bush at the time to veto that bill. But every 2 years, which is when the session comes in, legislature comes in Texas, the dietitians are fervent about creating and getting this bill passed. And every 2 years, we go in there and thwart that bill. In 2006, we formed the Texas Health Freedom Coalition, and you can look right next to me at the website. It's texashealthfreedom.com if you want to know more information about that. But let me tell you what's going on. The ADA, which is the American Dietitians Association, they're based out of Chicago, have basically decided that they want to monopolize the industry. They're backed by, of course, who would you guess? Big food industry. Also Big Pharma backs them. But the big food industry has a vested interest in making the dietitians sort of the king of the hill, so to speak. And if they can take any of us airy-fairy, tree-hugging, granola-eating health freaks out of the picture, they'll spend a lot of money to give support to legislation in these states to make sure that we're put out of business. Now, when you want to know, when you're thinking about, well, who really is behind it? What is a dietitian? Primarily, a registered dietitian's area of practice is in hospitals. So if you've ever eaten in a hospital, that's what a dietitian knows about diet and nutrition. In schools, in the school system, mostly dietitians are in charge of school lunch programs, etc. In large institutions, in prisons, etc. That's the registered dietitian's scope of practice. Now, this does not mean, and I'm not talking about individual dietitians, I'm talking about the organization itself. Individual dietitians, they all have, different practices and principles, and some of them have higher degrees in clinical nutrition, etc. But the Dietitians Association has a vested interest in making sure that nobody starts talking about certain things like dietary supplements, of which the dietitians really don't believe in. They believe in 5 different dietary supplements. Other than that, they feel that anything else is quackery, hocus pocus, etc. They say that there's no legitimate research done in dietary supplements, which is completely absurd. But nevertheless, that's their stance. And so it's really important to understand that this monopoly is happening across the United States. Right now, 30 states, this law has been passed. So in the state of Texas, there are literally thousands of traditional naturopaths and certified clinical nutritionists like myself and other nutritionists or individuals, including chiropractors, who also teach nutrition in their practice. All of these people would be put out of business, and you, the consumer, would not have the right to choose. So it's really important for you to understand that I am not against a dietitian. I am simply here to protect your right to choose. If you want to go see a dietitian for your nutritional education, by all means go. And I would stand and support a dietitian if their practice was being threatened by the government. But it's very important to give people the right to choose who they want to see as their practitioner, and also it's very important to give people a broader scope of education in nutrition. Because let's face it, nutrition is the most important factor, or one of the most important factors in our health. So back in 2006, in the state of Texas, we found that there was a lot of riff amongst the practitioners. The dietitians, we thought, were the only ones that were riffing, but basically the clinical nutritionists didn't like the naturopaths, and the naturopaths didn't like the homeopaths, and the homeopaths didn't like, et cetera, et cetera. It just kind of went on like that. So it became very tribal, and it's been very tribal for years. But in the state of Texas, what we had decided is, you know, let us all come together and talk about our philosophies and talk about what we all have in common, our commonalities versus our differences. And we formed, in 2006, we formed the Texas Health Freedom Coalition. In the Texas Health Freedom Coalition, which again, you can go to our website, texashealthfreedom.com, and you can see who all is involved in there. But we ended up getting the powers that be in all of those industries, in the naturopath, in the homeopath, in the natural food industry, the clinical nutritionists, the nutritional consultants, the various other organizations that support really what we all philosophically agree on, which is whole foods, natural foods. We believe in organic versus the dietitians that do not support the idea of organic is better. We believe that living a holistic lifestyle is very, very important for your health. So there was literally, and are in the state of Texas and in many states, thousands of practitioners that would be put out of work like that. They would go the next day and they would be considered breaking the law. As a matter of fact, I will tell you a story of a very, very good friend of mine and a colleague of mine who moved from Texas to Washington, Seattle, Washington. Why she wasn't paying attention to the laws, I don't know, because she knew better in Texas, but she wasn't. And she started her practice up, and for 10 years she practiced as a certified clinical nutritionist in Seattle, Washington. One day they caught up with her, and they basically said, are you aware that you have to be a registered dietitian to practice in the state of Washington? And she said no, and they said, well, we'll see about that. The next thing, what happened, according to her lawyer, is basically her lawyer gave her the advice. He said, you have 2 weeks to vacate the state. If you don't, they will fine you $1,000 a day for every day that you practiced in the state of Washington. Well, she practiced for 10 years. You can do the math on that. She had to drop her practice, which she had a thriving, beautiful practice in Seattle. She took her invalid husband, she left her home and her practice, and she moved to Reno, Nevada. Unfortunately, her husband, who was ill, died on the trip. I've seen other practitioners in other states be fined and lose their careers overnight. And so this is happening around the country, and most people are not aware of it. I, as being on the steering committee of the Texas Health Freedom Association, our coalition went in last spring of 2007 and again went up against and tried and succeeded in thwarting the dietitian's bill again, which was even more ruthless than the one in '99. And it will come up in 2009 again, and we're fully aware of that. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story. And in there was a House of Representative hearing, a committee hearing with the Government Reform Committee in 2007, and I opened that hearing with my story. I used to be a nutritional, not only I am a nutritional consultant, but I used to be a teacher at a place called Positive Changes Hypnosis, which was a hypnosis clinic and a weight loss clinic. And I worked there for almost 6 years, and I was laid off of that job or fired from that job because Positive Changes is a franchise, and the home office was in Florida, Texas. In Florida. And So what they did was the dietitians did succeed in monopolizing the state of Florida, and they went to the positive changes in Florida, and they basically said no one but a registered dietitian can teach nutrition in your practice. So therefore they went across the country and they basically said no one in our clinics can teach nutrition if they're not a registered dietitian, even if it wasn't a law in your state. So subsequently I was fired. Now here's the irony of this. I have a master's degree in education in nutrition, which means that I can teach nutrition at the college level. In other words, I could teach a dietitian to become a dietitian, but I can't teach in a weight loss clinic in Austin, Texas because of a law in Florida. I mean, how ironic is that? And as a matter of fact, the committee found that extremely ironic. So this is what's happening, and I really want you to be aware and sort of help to support. If you're in the state of Texas, then please help go to the TexasHealthFreedomCoalition.com and see what you can do. But also, if you're in another state, check out and see what the laws are, and see if you're seeing a nutritionist or if you're seeing practitioners. If you're not, then there's probably a law that's banning them from practice. But if you are, make sure that they know what's going on in their state and make sure that they're supported, because it's very, very important. We do not want to narrow down our exposure to information and our education on our health or nutrition down to a very narrow monopoly of one particular group. We don't believe in that, and I'm sure you don't believe in that. We don't want to see that happen across the United States. So please help the Texas Coalition, Texas Health Freedom Coalition, and also if you're not in this state, to make sure that you find out what's going on in your state, because these things, most people aren't aware of what goes on in their own legislature and how laws are passed. So I wanted to share this with you. I know it's very controversial, but that's the way it is. These things are happening behind our back, and we as citizens and we as practitioners need to make sure that we are allowed to practice. If you want to know more about me, you can go to my website. These are the things, and there's also the youtube.com/AHI Productions, which is my production company on complementary and alternative medicine. So please check that one out too, AHI Productions, and see more about complementary and alternative medicine and what it entails, because we really need to broaden our scope and broaden our horizon on what's available to us in the health care field as well as in the holistic practice. So thank you for joining me again. Please, if you haven't signed in, sign in and become a member. And also, I love hearing your comments. Please comment on what we've said today, or any other comments of what you want me to talk about or what you want to hear from me. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.